Hare Krishna. So today is the disappearance day of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. And I feel honored to speak today on his disappearance day and also very unqualified. It's Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, for those of you who are not aware, is the dear spiritual master of our spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And the beauty of Vaishnavism and of Srila Prabhupada's movement is that it has its roots in Lord Krishna himself, and it's given the knowledge, the transcendental knowledge, the instruction, the guideline are given through a chain of disciplic succession from teacher to disciple, all the way back to Krishna. So from Krishna to Lord Brahma, Brahma give it to Narada to Vyasadeva to Madhva, like that, coming down. And in that disciplic succession, there is also the advent of an incarnation of the Lord, a hidden incarnation of the Lord 500 years ago. Lord Chaitanya, who started this rejuvenation of the chanting of the holy name, seeing that in this age, people are so fallen that they are not really capable of austerity or sacrifice or yoga or achieving perfection through any other means, but by chanting the holy name of the Lord. It's there in the Bible too, like chanting the name of the Lord in the Quran everywhere. So after Lord Chaitanya gave a lot of instructions 500 years ago to his direct disciples, 6 Goswamis. And the 6 Goswamis, their duties, their responsibility was to expand the knowledge, to make it accessible, the knowledge of Vaishnavism, the knowledge of Bhakti Yoga, to make it accessible, more accessible to us. And then the disciplic succession continue, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur, and Narottam Das Thakur, and Srinivasacharya, and like that, it continue. And all through the 5 last one that Srila Prabhupada gave us for our altar. And Srila Prabhupada gave us those, like really for additionally to him, for us to get to know them. And by knowing them, we understand better why Srila Prabhupada's advent and Srila Prabhupada's teaching and Srila Prabhupada's presence on earth is so important. And so I'm going to start with some pranam mantras. First, the Guru Pranam. Om Agyanati Mirandasya Yana Jala Shalakaya Shakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master. So that's a Guru mantra. And it connects us with our direct link to the Parampara, and it also connects us with entire Parampara, all the way back to Krishna. And of course, for each link of that chain, the knowledge is given according to place, time, and circumstances, according to the audience, basically, according to who is capable of receiving. And Srila Prabhupada is especially empowered to give the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and to give us the mission of Lord Chaitanya. Is very specially empowered for this age, and we are going to read that in his pranam mantra. So pranam mantras are mantras that the disciple chant regularly throughout the day, at least 3 times a day. We are supposed to offer our obeisances to our spiritual master. And those pranam mantras, they carry for the disciple the mission of the spiritual master. They carry for the disciple it's a sense of service toward the spiritual master. So Srila Prabhupada's first pranam mantra is Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Niti Namine. And the exact translation is, I offer my respectful obeisances unto his divine grace, A.C. Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna on this earth, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. So Srila Prabhupada, we say every day that Srila Prabhupada is very, very dear to Lord Krishna. We want to remember that he's a special missionary, is especially sent by Lord Sri Krishna to help us, to free us, to save us. He's our savior. Like often in the Christian theology, there is a sense of Yeshua, Lord Jesus Christ, is a savior. And he is a savior according to time, place, and circumstance in Palestine. And Srila Prabhupada is a savior as a representative of God, of Krishna on earth. And he has on this earth, this pranam means on this earth, very specific. And because you have taken shelter of his lotus feet. The second pranam mantra for Srila Prabhupada is Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirveseshya Shunyavadi Paskachya Vejatarini. And the exact translation is, our respectful obeisances are unto you, O spiritual master, servant of Sarasvati Goswami. You are kindly preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya Dev and delivering the Western countries, which are filled with impersonalism and voidism. So here we go even more precisely. So Srila Prabhupada is a servant of his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. And his special mission is to preach the message of Lord Chaitanya to the Western world. That means us. Why to the Western world, and what specifically is aiming at destroying inside our hearts the tendency for impersonalism and the tendency for voidism. So that's a pranam mantra of Srila Prabhupada. And now Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, he has 4 pranam mantras. And his 4 pranam mantra also kind of reveal for us his external mission and his internal mission. And so we are going to read one at a time. I don't know them by heart, unfortunately. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Titi Namine. The translation is, I offer my respectful obeisances unto his divine grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna on this earth, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. So here we see the similarity between those 2 pranam mantras of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada. They have the same mission. Their mission is on earth, and what qualified them, full shelter under the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. The second one is Sivarshabhanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha. And the exact translation is, I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitya Das, another name of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati. That's the name you receive when you receive initiation from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. And that's a beautiful story in itself, how you receive initiation from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. Who is favored by Srimati Radharani, with the ocean of transcendental mercy, the deliverer of the science of Krishna. So that's very intimate. Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur is favored by Srimati Radharani. When Srila Prabhupada was born, he had his astrological chart also being read. And astrologers said that Srila Prabhupada was a very dear servant of Srimati Radharani. So naturally, the servant of Srimati Radharani, they find each other and they serve each other. And is an ocean of transcendental mercy and the deliverer of the science of Krishna. So Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, following, like, starting with his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, there was like they started a movement within the Vaishnava community to reestablish the science of Bhakti Yoga as a bona fide, sober ways to completely deliver, free oneself, and go ultimate to the ultimate goal of life, which is love of God, love of Krishna, and serving the lotus feet of Krishna. And so starting with Bhaktivinoda Thakur, there is that rejuvenation of that movement in a very specific way. They kind of left behind the what looked like external or all the pretension, or also Vaishnavism at the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur was seen as something sentimental, something not very respected, because people were pretending being more advanced than what they were, and acting in a way that was not respectable, or respect, because they were really making Bhakti Yoga very, very cheap. Very, very, very cheap. The Sahaja movements make Bhakti Yoga very, very cheap. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur saw that, and is the first one where I kind of rejuvenated the Siddhanta, to make Vaishnavism, to put back Vaishnavism to where it belongs, which is a serious, sober process for God realization. And two aspects to that mission for Bhaktivinoda Thakur that was taken by Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. One is to destroy the ideas that the advanced spiritualists are born in a certain caste. So that to destroy that idea, because in India at the time, just by your birth in a Brahmin family, that was putting you in a position of respect for your spiritual advancement, which wasn't a given. Just by being born in any family doesn't guarantee knowledge or qualification, even more so when it comes to spiritual qualification. So that's one thing that Bhaktivinoda Thakur really pointed out, and that's an interesting one. And then the second thing is that everyone is qualified, and they really took creativity of Patiache. Now, anyway, that verse from Lord Chaitanya that he said that this movement is going to spread in every town and villages. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was the first one to really look at those words and say, yes, that's it. It's not even for India. It's for everyone, every class of men, that there is no prior birth qualification to become a Vaishnava, that everyone is qualified to chant the holy name and become a Vaishnava. So those two trade of a mission are manifested in Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then his son, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, took that to the next level. And the next level, one important part of our disciplic succession is, I don't know so much about Jagannath Das Babaji, but starting with Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gaurkishore Das Babaji, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, and our dear Srila Prabhupada, none of them were born in a Brahmin family. Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur is a career star, and like from his father too. So that's an interesting fact too, that they earn respect in a Vaishnav tradition, and they earn respect among the Brahman, and they earn respect by the quality of their being, and the quality of their service to Krishna, not by their caste, because they were not even coming from Brahman's family. So that's a very interesting fact also. So the third prana mantra, I have four. So the third prana mantras read, Madhuryo Jwala Premadya Shri Rupa Nuga Bhaktida Shri Goraka Una Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, the personified energy of Sri Chaitanya's mercy, who delivered devotional service enriched with conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, coming exactly in a line of the revelation of Srila Rupa Goswami. So in this prana mantra, we go deeper into Lord Chaitanya's mission as he was, expanded upon by Srila Rupa Goswami, the first, like the first line of disciple after Lord Chaitanya, and really to bring forth the essence of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, which is service to Radha and Krishna, like the union, the relationship between Krishna and his most dear energy, the energy of Vladini Shakti, of bliss. So the last prana mantra read, Namaste Gauravani Srimurtaye Dinatarine Upanuga Virudapa Siddhanta Dwanta Arine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who are the personified teaching of Lord Chaitanya. You are the deliverer of the fallen souls. You do not tolerate any statement against the teaching of devotional service enunciated by Srila Rupa Goswami. So this morning we read just before Japa the pastime of our spiritual master, S.T. Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Prabhupada, meeting Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. And I'm reading a very interesting book. It's called Sing, Dance and Pray. And it's a biography of Srila Prabhupada that's written from a very different angle of other biographies. There is not so much of his pastime or his childhood, but there is a lot about the political, the context of his birth, the context of his youth, the context of political and philosophical and also spiritual context of Srila Prabhupada. So in that book, there is an emphasis that, Srila Prabhupada also in one of his lectures, he emphasized that among his friends when he was in college and even in younger age, practically all his life, Prabhupada was always a leader. Like we see that when Srila Prabhupada was a kid, he organized Ratha Yatra, and all the kids of the neighborhood and all the mothers, they made prashadam, everybody participated based on that one leadership of Srila Prabhupada. And so that's true throughout his life, like as a young man and in college and in university, that's true throughout his life. So in 1922, Srila Prabhupada was asked by one of his friends to go visit a sadhu. And Srila Prabhupada, in one of his lectures, expressed, because he was a leader, that friend knew that if Abai Babu is going to see that sadhu and like him, then all our other friends will follow. Because whatever Abai Babu liked, everybody else was doing. And so when Abai, he went with his friend, and they were intellectual and English, very influenced by the Western world, the Western culture, he went to a Christian Scottish college, Srila Prabhupada in Calcutta. So they were reformer, and they were not simply attached to the Indian culture in a way that's agreed or stifling. But like they were cultured in their Vedic tradition, and at the same time they were integrating the Western world culture. They were like merging both. So Abai also, he was at the time, he was a follower of Gandhi. He admired Gandhi from a young age, in fact. And the main reason he was admiring Gandhi is Gandhi was preaching the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. And Abai, as a young man, he really liked that. He liked the idea of nonviolence. And the main reason he was following Gandhi is because Gandhi was, like openly presenting the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. And later on, Srila Prabhupada kind of realized that, yes, he was presenting the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, but his main agenda were political and social instead of being transcendental. And Srila Prabhupada wrote very beautiful and heavy, sober letter to Gandhi. And if Gandhi had followed the instruction that Srila Prabhupada was giving him, he would have saved his life. He would have been killed. Because Srila Prabhupada was telling him, stop. Like right now, you have enough popularity. It's time for you to retire, and don't try to fix material problem with the material solution. Come to a place that no material problem is going to be solved by any material solution, even your fasting, even your austerity, and really come to be a servant of Bhagavad Gita. Come to be a servant of Krishna and focus there. And Gandhi didn't. I don't know if Gandhi read the letter and he didn't follow the instruction. Anyway, that's where Abai was at the time. He was really admiring Gandhi. And he was really hesitant to go see another sadhu. In his childhood, there were so many sadhus coming to his father's house. They will come to his, like sadhus go to householder. And because Gaur Mohan De, with Srila Prabhupada's father, also a pure devotee, was very pious, then he will receive sadhus in his house, and he will receive them sumptuously and give them whatever they wanted, wash their feet. He will feed them sumptuously. And also sadhus, they will ask for a ganja, marijuana. And then go Mohan De, he will give them what they wanted. And Abai was looking at that, and he was disgusted. He was completely disgusted. His father was so much more pure and a real Vaishnav than those sadhus that his father was taking care of. So of course, when his college friend said, come and see that sadhu, Abai was like, I don't want sadhus. I've seen so many of them. But his friends kind of dragged him. He dragged me. He dragged me like I have no choice to go. And so that was 1922. And when he was dragged and he arrived in the room full of people where Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur was lecturing, and he offered obeisances. And as soon as he got up from his obeisances, he was singled out by Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. He said, you young man, your responsibility is to preach the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Western world, in the English language. Right away, Srila Prabhupada received his mission. And so Srila Prabhupada stayed for the lecture. And as soon as he left, he told his friend that he was so pleased. And the reason he was pleased is because Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur was a serious follower of Lord Chaitanya, that his mission was to propagate Lord Chaitanya's mission and the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. And that's what Abai grew up with. That's what the truth of his spiritual life was at the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. So when he saw that sadhu that was really aligned with his devotion, the core of his devotion, right away he felt the presence of of his spiritual master. And it's interesting because in 1923, he moved away from Calcutta. So in a sense, he moved away from Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur to open a pharmacy, because at the time, Abai was very attractive. The spiritual master said, join us. At the time, Abai had a business. He was married. He already had one son. So he felt like, I have responsibility. I cannot really join that movement. However, interestingly, he always remembered this encounter between himself and Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. And right away, he started to feel the desire to preach without, like much association whatsoever. So that's the indication of how the pure devotee recognize another pure devotee and manifest their own mission. And so I have a few books here, and I'm not sure where I'm going to go. I already said a lot, and I'm not sure where I'm going to go. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with, this is a Brahma Samhita. This is one book that's written by Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur that Srila Prabhupada gave us to read. It was written directly in English, like by Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. And at the end of the Brahma Samhita, there is a short biography of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. So I thought we could read that short biography, and it will give us some idea who the author of this translation of the Brahma Samhita is. Some fact, about his life. So the author, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati was born in the holy pilgrimage place of Jagannath Puri to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, a great Krishna conscious spiritual master in the line of succession coming from Lord Chaitanya. Also employed as a government magistrate, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur worked tirelessly to establish the teaching of Lord Chaitanya in India, where, unfortunately, the people had come to neglect the principles of devotional service to the Supreme Lord Krishna. He envisioned a worldwide Krishna consciousness movement and prayed to the Lord for a son to help him achieve his dream. So Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur sometimes is called the ray of Vishnu, because Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he really prayed a lot to have that ray of Vishnu, to have like an empowered representative of the Lord as his son. On February 6, 1874, in a sacred pilgrimage town of Jagannath Puri, where Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur served as superintendent of the famous Jagannath temple, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur appeared in this world. He was given the name Bimala Prasad. At the age of 7, Bimala Prasad had memorized the more than 700 Sanskrit verses of Bhagavad Gita and could speak illuminated commentary upon them. So that means he memorized the entire Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is 700 verses. And he memorized, by 7-year-old, he could recite all the verses of the Bhagavad Gita in Sanskrit, and he could give commentary on them. So, in the same way that we look at Krishna, God, never become God. So when we look at the pure devotees manifest pastime, we also understand that their special position. Yesterday, I read almost all the lectures that Srila Prabhupada gave on the disappearance day of his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. And most of his lectures start with an understanding that there is no difference between the appearance and disappearance of the Vaishnavas. In fact, dehinosmin yata dehi komaramyo vanamjara tata dehantarat praptir dires tatra namuyati. As the embodied soul passes from boyhood and youth, like that. Similarly, the soul passes in another body at the time of death. And the self-realized soul, the sober soul, the wise person, is not bewildered by such a change. So then why are we speaking about Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur? And because by speaking about the pure devotees, we get purified ourselves by speaking about their pastime. There's more I want to say about that, but I'm going to continue. So by at the age of 700 Sanskrit words, he could speak the whole Bhagavad Gita. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the author of many important books and other writing on the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, trained his son in printing and proofreading. So it was really his mission. Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, he said that there is a mridanga. When we go in the street, we have a drum and we play the mridanga. And Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, he spoke about the Brihad Mridanga, the great Mridanga, which is all based on book. And he said, like, the mission of Srila Prabhupada was in following the mission of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur to make books more important than temples. At one point, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur was so disappointed with his followers, his disciples, because his disciples were fighting. He built a big temple, and I think it was in Calcutta, but I'm not sure where was that temple. But it was a big temple, marble and all that. And the vision of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur in establishing that temple was to establish like a strongly established the position of Vaishnavism in the world. And what's happened is that his followers, his disciples, started to fight amongst themselves to know who is going to get the best room. And he was very disappointed. And he told Abai, let's sell all the marble and just print books. Yeah. So
is that what they did?
What they did, I don't think the temple was sold.
Okay.
I don't remember. I read something about it, but I don't remember. By the time he was 25 years old, Bimala Prasad had acquired an impressive reputation as a scholar of Sanskrit, mathematics, and astronomy. So he was a scholar. Another name for Bimala Prasad is a walking encyclopedia. He knew about everything because from a very young age, he was able to, understand knowledge just by understanding the Bhagavad Gita. One understands so much. In 1905, following the advice of his father, Siddhanta Sarasvati accepted spiritual initiation from Gaura Kishore Das Babaji. Also, Gaura Kishore Das Babaji was renowned as a saintly person and a great devotee of Lord Krishna. He was illiterate. So we have the most literate personality, a walking encyclopedia, who took initiation, received initiation formally from Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, was illiterate. All that through our disciplic succession, we can see how bhakti is not depending on any material qualification. There is no material impediment to bhakti. Satisfied with the humility and dedication of his highly educated disciple, Srila Gaura Kishore gave him his full blessing and requested him to preach the absolute truth and keep aside all other work. Siddhanta Sarasvati then proved himself a capable assistant in the missionary work of his father. Upon the death of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in 1914, Siddhanta Sarasvati became editor of his father's journal, Sajjanato Sani, and founded the Bhagavad Press for publication of Krishna conscious literature. Then, in 1918, Siddhanta Sarasvati accepted the renounced order of spiritual life, assuming the title Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Goswami Maharaj. Siddhanta means a conclusion of the Vedanta. and Bhakti is it is Bhakti, Bhaktisiddhanta, Sarasvati Goswami Maharaj. For the purpose of propagating Krishna consciousness throughout India, he organized the Gaudiya Math with 64 branches throughout the country. The headquarters of his mission, the Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, was located in Sridham Mayapur, the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. He would later send disciples to Europe for missionary work. So in 1896, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his father, is the first one who sent books to the West. And I joined in Montreal. That's when I got in contact with devotees. That's where I started practicing Krishna consciousness, chanting 16 rounds, following the 400 principle. So it was in Montreal, Canada. And I was very proud. That's where I became a devotee. First, because it was the second or third temple that Prabhupada established, but also because this is one of the places where Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur signed his book, Life and Presence of Lord Chaitanya at McGill University. So that kind of gave me some spiritual pride to be part of that temple. And we had cases and cases of that book. And so we can see like there is a train of thoughts. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada and Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji is there like to give also the aspect of pronunciation to Bhakti Yoga, because there is the literacy, the literacy of Bhakti Yoga that was really important to reestablish, and also renunciation that was established by Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur sent books in the West, he sent in New York, also different places in the West. And then his son, who took up the mission of his father, he sent his disciple to the West. And he had disciples even in Germany. And his sannyasi disciples were not very successful to preach and to spread his mission in the West. But we know we'll do it. Okay. He later sent disciples to Europe for missionary work. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati adjusted the tradition of Krishna consciousness to conform with the technological and social condition of the 20th century. So, Yukta Vairagya is a big principle enunciated by Srila Rupa Goswami. It's not about trying to keep the tradition intact. It's about, according to place, time, and circumstance, using all the energy of Krishna, everything that's available, even in the modern world, like we are using a computer right now to speak about Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, and in the name of keeping the tradition intact, if we were staying away from the computer, then a lot of people will not hear about Krishna or Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur right now. So that's really something that was very controversial. Like at the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, sannyasi were not supposed to ride on a car. And Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, he was wearing a watch, and he was driving in big cars. And all that was very revolutionary, really not part of the tradition. So he considered the printing press the most effective means of spreading Krishna consciousness throughout the world, and was himself the author of many important translations, commentaries, and philosophical essays. He was the first spiritual master to allow his renounced preacher, sannyasi, to wear Western clothes and travel in modern conveyance rather than on foot. So sannyasi parivrakacharya means that they are on foot, like they walk on foot, and they go from village to village on foot. That's the tradition. And Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur said, okay, well, we need to preach in Europe, in the Western world. So let's use the modern convenience, because this is not against spirituality. It's meant to be used to support the mission of spreading, re-spiritualizing the world, re-spiritualizing the world. In 1922, an intelligent young college student named Abhay Charan De happened to visit Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati at the Gaudiya Math Center in Calcutta. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta immediately advised the young man that he should preach the message of Krishna consciousness to the Western world in the English language. Also not able to immediately carry out Bhaktisiddhanta's desire, Abhay became an active supporter of the Gaudiya Math. In 1933, Abhay formally became a disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, who gave him the name Abhay Charanaravinda. This morning we read, and in his classes, Srila Prabhupada explained that when he went to see Bhaktisiddhanta in 1922, and he gave him his mission, he said, I wasn't initiated for 11 years until 1933. And at the same time, he said, but that was my initiation. So the initiation starts when the process of a guru disciple is initiated. Initiation means to start. So when that process, when we start following instruction, when we start following receiving knowledge, transcendental knowledge from the spiritual master, then that's the start of the process of initiation. And then Srila Prabhupada didn't receive the formal initiation until 11 years later. Continuing, throughout the 1930s, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta expanded and increased his missionary work and succeeded in re-establishing Krishna consciousness as a leading force in Indian spiritual life. So they are re-established instead of being mocked by the Brahmins. It was like really re-established as a leading force. Anxious that his work continued, he urged his disciple to form a joint governing body commission to manage the Gaudiya Math in his absence. On January 1st, 1937, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati passed from this world. Unfortunately, his leading disciple did not heed his instruction to maintain a governing body commission, and as a result, the Gaudiya Math, as a united preaching missionary organization, gradually disintegrated. Abhay Charanaravinda, however, remained faithful to the vision of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, that Krishna consciousness become a worldwide movement, to the order he personally received from him. He accepted the renounced order of life, sannyas, assuming the title Bhaktivedanta Swami, and in 1965 traveled to the United States to preach Krishna consciousness in the English language. So that's a short summary of his life. There is another little anecdote from the childhood of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur that Srila Prabhupada liked to share, is that Bimala Prashad, when he was about 3 years old, in Bengal, there is this mango. Mango is like a big thing. It's like the treasured food. Mango is a treasured food, like so juicy, it's so delectable. Even the Srimad Bhagavatam glorified mango so many times, like describe how the knowledge descends to us like nectar, like mangoes that's handed from one person to another. So that's how special mangoes are. And I know I love mango. I think mangoes taste so good and they're so satisfying. So Bimala Prashad, he was 3 years old, and he went in the yard, and the mangoes were ripe at that season, and he picked a mango from the tree, and then he peeled it and ate it. And then just at that time, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur saw his son, and he wanted to correct his son. He wanted, because he's training, he wanted to bring in the training of his son that everything is made for Krishna's pleasure. It's not for our pleasure, including the mangoes. So he kind of lightly chastised his son. He said, well, like it's not offered to Krishna. We don't eat anything that's not offered to Krishna first, because otherwise it means we take away something that belongs to Krishna. We take it away for our own satisfaction. So we need to offer. And the Bimala Prasha, 3-year-old, took that so seriously. He felt such an offender that for the rest of his life, the rest of his manifest pastime, he completely refused to accept mangoes, feeling like he was a great sinner, a great offender of the Lord, and always presenting himself in that way. And another aspect of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur is, in order to prepare himself for the mission of spreading the glories of Lord Chaitanya, according to in the wake of his father, for 10 years, he made a vow to chant in a solitary place. And he has a lot of poetry about that, encouraging us not to do that. And still he did it. Like, I don't remember how many, the number of rounds that he committed to. However, for 10 years, that's what he did. He's chanted all day long. And I didn't read from that beautiful book. I don't know if I can read something quick, just to give you an idea of that book, 35. I'm going to read something from this book just because. So this is from one biography of Srila Prabhupada that just came out. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a son who also became a monk, an heir to his father in the Gaudiya Vaishnavite tradition. This illustrious son, born Bimala Prasad Dat, was known more by his monastic name Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. Early in his life, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur changed the course of modern Gaudiya Vaishnavism through one seminal event. Before we go into that event, it is important to note a seminal fact about the lives of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his son Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, and Srila Prabhupada. None of them were Brahmins. Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati belonged to a Kayasta community, a community in the Hindu caste system, which was known for its intellectual abilities. Vivekananda's was a Kayasta. So at the time when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was preaching, Vivekananda, it was like a very well-known guru who also came to the West in early. But in the religious pecking order, lower than the Brahmin or the priestly class, which had hegemony on theological knowledge, Srila Prabhupada belonged to the Suvarna Banik community. In Vaishnavism, all that would change on 8 September of 1911 at a mass gathering of traditional Vaishnavite scholars. All of them caste Brahmin, except Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, who was indeed the most qualified Brahman to not by caste. And that's a really long, like the last time I was in India, I got this book, and it's called Brahman and Vaishnav. So that's a speech that Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur gave at that gathering. There was thousands of Brahmins, Vaishnavas, and Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, based on the Srimad Bhagavatam, based on all Shastra, he demonstrated how Vaishnavas are superior to Brahmins. And that was a hard one to accept for the gathered people, and they all surrendered upon Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. And there is a few instances in the life of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur where Babaji's an elevated soul that were recognized by the world as elevated soul, completely bow down and surrender to Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. One of those instances is at the death of his spiritual master, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. And at that time, in Jagannath Puri, I believe, all the head of Brahmins' head and Babajis of all the temples, they wanted to claim the body of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji because it was a good business to have a samadhi of Babaji Maharaj in their temple. And they were arguing to take the body, and Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur defeated all of them by a simple means. He was so pure and so stern that he challenged them on their sexual life. And by doing that, they all backed out, and Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur was able to give proper honor to Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. So Bhaktisiddhanta challenged the supremacy of hereditary transmission of knowledge and argued that it is true devotion and spiritual practice that mattered more than lineage. He presented a paper titled Brahmano Vaishnav, that's this paper, and which became a guiding document for the reinvigorated Gaudiya Vaishnavite tradition as started by his father. So I'm going to stop here. There's so much more nectar to read about Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. However, it's 9 o'clock and I want to give space for a common question. And in one of his lectures, Srila Prabhupada said, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur was very anxious to preach in the Western world the cult of Lord Chaitanya. So we can imagine how pleased he has been by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is only disciple who really took on that mission and preached to the West. And as predicted by both Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. And it's very significant that the year Bhaktivinoda Thakur sent those books to the West was the birth year of Srila Prabhupada. Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanande Hari Hari Bhavan. Hare Krishna, any comment, question, or sharing? One thing I wanted to do is sing Jaya Nilo Premadana, because in one of his lectures, Srila Prabhupada said to his disciple, sing that song today, sing that song. And so earlier I was saying, like, there is no difference between appearance and disappearance, and for a Vaishnav. And Srila Prabhupada gave an example that for others we can lament. You know, if someone have, you know, like there is lamentation if we know someone is going to degrade themselves because, for example, they committed a lot of violence in this life, or on different things like that. However, even so, there is no lamentation for the appearance or disappearance of Vaishnav. There is such a thing as separation. And that mood of separation is helping us to make advancement in spiritual life. And that song, Nilo Premadana, that we sing for disappearance days of great Vaishnavas, it's written by Narottam Das Thakur. It helps us to understand that, yes, we want to feel the pang of separation from Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. Feel the pang of, like, where is that Vaishnav that was so Siddhanta, so righteous and so sober and direct that he could make all the world bow down at his feet. Where is Srila Prabhupada, that he was so compassionate that he could even save wretched Westerners from the hellish condition that they had created for them. So like to really learn that mood of separation, no lamentation and separation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
I
Krishna.
would like to share some comments. Thank you very much for this class that I was really relishing and appreciating hearing more history on disciplic succession and Bhaktisiddhanta. I guess there's a couple things coming up for me. When you first started, we were looking at pranams to our guru, and I was like thinking to myself like, oh, like how often I say these, and I'm like speaking it in Sanskrit, and I'm not really connecting to like what it actually means, like fully. I understand the mood, and I feel like I tried to like get in that mood when I'm giving pranams to Srila Prabhupada. At the same time, I was like really just looking at like, oh, what would my life be like, or what would my experience be like if I was actually speaking it in English and really understanding exactly what I'm saying when I'm saying it. So I was really kind of connecting to that and just kind of, I don't know, I feel like I want to play with that a little bit in my personal practice, because I feel like there could be some disconnection sometimes, because I'm like, you know, I don't know anything about Sanskrit, or, you know, because I'm just completely like, you know. So I was appreciating that, just kind of sitting with that realization, and to give myself to that, you know, experiment. I really liked acknowledging, you know, there's no material impediment, and looking at Bhaktisiddhanta and Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, and like how completely contrasting they are. And like, oh, it just everything feels so much like lighter, I guess, for myself, like, you know, just on my, you know, judgments of my limitations and my abilities. So I really appreciate that, and I feel like I don't know, it's just like really it's an important like aspect to look at directly close by Srila Prabhupada. You know, it's not like this happened a long time ago, these individuals in our line. So I was appreciating that. And then also, like, you know, I was hearing when you first started, you were speaking about like, you know, it seemed like there's this common theme, like with our, you know, I always thought about the individuals in the disciplic succession as like, they're transferring the transcendental knowledge without touching it, you know, just giving it like whole and complete without like, you know, interpreting or any, just like passing it on. And, you know, that's something I got before, but I was also thinking about what you were expressing in that, like, also their mood and intention was to like really bring the science and the essence to like the forefront, where like society or these groups seem to like lose it.
Yeah.
And then I was still thinking about like my experience today, like even to this day, looking at my experience of going to church when I was younger, and even like connecting and learning about the greater Krishna conscious communities, and what's happening, what are they up to, what is their mood, what is their like, what, and then meeting individuals that share their personal experience of growing up in Krishna consciousness and where they're at today, and just seeing like it's still happening today, where so I'm seeing like that's a responsibility of our practice as well, as to like really help like keep that focus of like the science, the purity of the practice, and like passing that on, or like keeping it alive, because it seems so easily that like the waves can just come in and just like, you know, hide it, or like people lose it, and then they're like, oh, I'm, you know, I'm doing this thing, and it almost becomes like this culture and like this experience where, okay, what are we doing here? What is really the essence of what are we doing? So I was like appreciating that, like bringing that to like, you know, awareness of like, yeah, that's also like really the big mood and intention of the disciplic succession in these the acharyas. There's just like, wow, like they really, you know, not only just passing it, I guess that's part of passing it, you know, purely or in a pure sense, is like that's initially doing that, I guess. I don't know, I'm just kind of like thinking about this. It's just kind of, that's what's coming up for me. So I'm really appreciating this class. I thank you very much for, I got you as like really like, you know, doing your homework and really presenting like really just a lot of nectar. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Garuda Prabhu. I saw three points, and I'm going to endeavor. Oh, what's happening here?
How to get back.
Thank you. So I see 3 points you made. I will start with your last point, because I think it's very relevant. The word Siddhanta means conclusion or essence. So yeah, when a religion carry the culture maybe, or the rituals, or carry the experience, then it tends to lose the essence and conclusion. And the Siddhanta, it loses Siddhanta. That's the word. That's what you're speaking about is Siddhanta, that essential aspect. And what's interesting in what you're sharing and what's happened from Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur on, and even before that, is that it's got the opposite. They keep the Siddhanta, and then they adapt to the context. Like a pure devotee and a messenger of God keeps the Siddhanta and then adapt to the rest. Like Christ, he faced the same situation. The Pharisees, they were just like attached to rule regulation, attached to study the Torah in a certain way, and they were attached to all the net picking of things that had nothing to do with the Siddhanta of loving God with all your might and all your heart. And then Christ came back and he pointed to the Siddhanta, but as you say, in most churches and for most practitioners, that Siddhanta, that essence, that conclusion is lost. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, he used cars and airplane and train and watch. That was really unheard of, and it was controversial. And our Prabhupada, he changed so many things. He gave initiation to women. He had women ashram. He has brahmacharinis. He gave them Brahman initiation. For example, so many things that didn't have anything to do with the essence, but served the essence. So the pure devotee of the Lord, like Christ, Muhammad, Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, they know how to give the essence of bhakti, of love of God, and without attachment to the external, use the external to serve that, instead of what you experience in a Christian church, or children maybe even in Krishna consciousness in many religions, where the essence is kind of behind or maybe lost in some place, and what's the focus becomes the form, and then it becomes really empty. Yeah, and I appreciate that you appreciated the different personalities on the altar, and our different acharya and their different personalities, and see how they all give us a message. They're all here. And Prabhupada, of course, synthesized all of them. And he gave us all of them, and he synthesized all of them. He had, you know, he has the erudition of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, and he gave it to us. He's the greatest scholar of his time in English language. And he has a renunciation. He renounced everything. He went on a boat with $7 in his pocket to come to a country that he didn't know anything. And that's a renunciation and the mood of Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji. And he has that, you know, universal compassion, universal brotherhood compassion, and meeting people where they are at, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he really synthesized all our acharya, and each of the acharya help us to focus on different aspects. And we want to develop a relationship with them. Prabhupada sometimes says that the grandfather is more merciful than the father. So we want to pray to those previous acharya to get their mercy. And today we can pray to Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur to connect with him, his sternness. And I know I'm intimidated. Of all the acharya, I'm very intimidated by Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. It's just, he intimidates me. And yes. And then your first point was about the pranam mantras. And Krishna consciousness means we, of course, you know, first bow and you feel, Prabhupada says. So, you know, when his disciples, I don't feel like bowing down, Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada responding, first you bow and you feel. So reciting the pranam mantra, even unconsciously, is purifying. Bowing down even unconsciously is purifying. And this is a Krishna consciousness movement. So we need to, little by little, be responsible to increase our consciousness as we practice, increase our consciousness as we bow down, like really be like having that humility, like I'm prostrating myself in front of my spiritual master. I put some straw in my mouth and I prostrate myself in front of my spiritual master. And then I glorify him as a representative of Krishna, taking shelter of Krishna, and representative of spiritual master, and with a special mission. All those acharyas, the way I see them is that they are being handpicked by Lord Krishna and manifested in a very specific way by Lord Shri Krishna in order to create a continuity up to us, to reach us, you know, in Kali Yoga 2022. Yes. And so, yes, we want to know when we recite those songs in the morning program song, the Guru Astakam, when we sing Nishingadev prayer. Once someone asked me, what do you think of when you sing Nishingadev prayer? I thought, I think about the verses, or I think about what I'm saying in a song. There's no need to create anything else. You know, each verse is very specific about what we are singing. Same thing in the Guru Astakam, same thing, of course, when we sing the Guru Vandanam, we are more familiar because we do recite English before. And so that's maybe a song where it's easier to focus on the meaning of every verse. So that's Krishna consciousness, bringing the consciousness into it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any other comment, question about the life of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, our relationship? If not, we can sing the Nilo song. If there is nobody, we can just sing that song. I can share it on the screen. We can take turn reading.
I just want to say thank you. It was nice to hear about the man who Prabhupada's guru, and how the missions sort of manifested before Prabhupada. I hadn't heard much before that, so it's nice. Thank you for diving into him today, sharing him with us.
I'm glad he was supportive of your meditation, Kelly, on the Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, and on the mission that was like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He had a vision. So that was in 1800. He had a vision of Westerners, people from all over the world gathering in the site of Sridham Mayapur. And he had that vision. And at that time, only Vaishnavism was only known in India. And now every year for Lord Chaitanya's appearance there is tens of thousands of Westerners gathering at Sridham Mayapur to celebrate Lord Chaitanya's birthday. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur had that vision way in advance, and early on. And he knows he was a commander-in-chief of the army of Lord Chaitanya that will go to the West and save the people of the West. And this prediction was the prediction of Srila Prabhupada crossing the ocean and coming to free us. So I'm going to screen share the song that Srila Prabhupada encourages to sing on this day of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur disappearance day. I'm going to share. And if someone online or someone here would like to read the first verse translation, English translation of the first verse.
He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy, whereas such a personality as Advaita Acharya God, whereas such personality as Advaita Acharya God.
Someone want to read number 2?
Where are my Svarupa Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen?
Number 3.
Where am I Raghunath Bhat and Gopal Bhat, and where is Krishna Das Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go?
Number 5.
I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire, where I will find, cut off a little bit on my screen, sorry, where I will find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities.
Being unable to obtain the association with Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees, in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps.
Thank you. So Narottam Das Thakur was, in succession after the 6th Goswami, and it expressed the mood. And so for us is where is Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, the great savior of humanity, gone? Where is Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who came to save us from nihilism and personalism? Where is he now? So we can imbibe that mood of Narottam Das Thakur. I'm going to sing that song like just without instrument, just for us to learn the song, and we can do a call and response with Garuda Prabhu and Dear Govinda Prabhu. Ye anilo premadana Karuna Pachu Ye anilo premadana Karuna Pachu Eno Prabhu Kota Gelacharya Thakur Eno Prabhu Kota Gelacharya Thakur Kamora Swarupupa Kasanata Kamora Swarupupa Kasanata Kadasaragunata Patita Pavan Kadasaragunata Mata Patita Pava Kama Bata Yuga Kahakavira Kama Bata Yuga Kahakavira Eka Kalikota Gela Gomanatara Eka Kalikota Gela Gomanatara Ashane kuti bomata anale pashibo Ashane kuti bomata anale pashibo Golgonga gunera Nidi kota gele pabo Golgonga gunera Nidi kota gele pabo Se saba sangi la sange Ye kolo bila Se saba sangi la sange Ye kolo bila Se sangana paya Kande Narutamuda Jaya Bhaktisiddhanta 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you for your presence and thank you for being here to celebrate together the disappearance day of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur ki jai. Hare Krishna. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.